Emily Parker was nervous as the car rolled down the quiet road leading to Daniel's family home outside Portland. Her fingers played with the bracelet on her wrist, a gift from Daniel, the man she'd fallen for faster than she ever expected. She wasn't just meeting his mother today, she was meeting the woman who had shaped the man she loved. For weeks, Daniel had been excited about this trip. "You'll love her," he had said. "She's sweet, smart, and she adore you." Emily wanted to believe that. She had dressed carefully that morning in a soft blue dress, the kind Daniel once said made her eyes stand out, and carried a small box of cookies she had baked herself. When they pulled into the driveway, a beautiful cottage appeared between tall trees, its porch decorated with flowers. It felt warm and peaceful. Daniel parked the car, turned to her, and smiled. "You ready?" he asked, his eyes full of encouragement. Emily smiled back, trying to hide the small knot in her stomach. "I think so," she whispered. The front door opened before they could knock. A woman with silver-streaked hair and gentle brown eyes stood there, wearing an apron and a welcoming smile. "You must be Emily," she said, stepping forward to hug her. "I'm Margaret. It's so good to finally meet you." Emily returned the hug, feeling a mix of relief and nerves. Margaret smelled faintly of lavender and coffee, and her tone was polite but carried something deeper, something Emily couldn't name. Inside, the house felt like a mix of old memories and quiet pride. Family pictures lined the walls. Daniel as a child, Daniel at graduation, Daniel with a dog Emily had never seen. Everything seemed ordinary, yet Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into a story already in progress. Dinner that evening was simple, but delicious: roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and a salad from Margaret's garden. They talked about Emily's work as an interior designer, her family back in Seattle, and how she and Daniel had met at a charity event. Margaret listened carefully, smiling at all the right moments. But her eyes often lingered on Daniel in a way that made Emily wonder what she was thinking at one point. Margaret asked Emily, "What do you love most about my son?" Emily smiled, caught off guard but eager to answer. "He makes me feel understood," she said. "He listens. He's patient, and he always sees the good in people." Daniel looked down, smiling shyly, but Margaret just nodded. "That sounds like him," she said softly. "He's always had a big heart, sometimes too big." Her words hung in the air, gentle but strange. Emily laughed lightly to ease the tension, but inside a question began to form. After dinner, Danelle went to take a phone call from work, leaving Emily and Margaret alone in the living room. The older woman poured 2 glasses of wine and sat across from her on the couch. "You seem like a lovely girl," Margaret began, her tone calm but serious. "I can see why Daniel likes you." "Thank you," Emily said, trying to relax. Margaret took a slow sip of her wine. "Tell me something," she said. "How well do you think you know him?" The question caught Emily off guard. "Pretty well, I think," she replied carefully. "We've been together almost a year." Margaret smiled faintly, though her eyes didn't soften. A year can feel like forever, or like a moment. Sometimes people carry parts of their past quietly, even when they think they've moved on. Emily's heart skipped. "Is there something you're trying to tell me?" she asked, her voice quiet. Margaret looked toward the window where the last of the daylight was fading. "I just want you to be sure you see all of him. He's a good man, Emily, but good men can still have ghosts." Before Emily could respond, the sound of footsteps came from the hallway. Daniel returned, smiling as if nothing in the world could be wrong. "Everything okay in here?" he asked. Margaret smiled warmly and stood up. "Of course, dear. We were just talking about your terrible sense of humor." Daniel laughed and sat beside Emily, slipping his arm around her shoulders. The moment felt normal again, yet the words Margaret had spoken stayed sharp in Emily's mind. Later that night, after Margaret went to bed, Emily and Daniel sat by the fireplace. The flickering light danced across his face, making him look both familiar and distant. "Your mom's really sweet," Emily said. "She is," Daniel replied softly. "But she worries too much. She's been through a lot." "What kind of things?" Emily asked. Daniel hesitated, staring into the fire. "Just family things. My dad left when I was young. Mom took it hard. She doesn't trust easily anymore. Emily nodded, feeling a wave of sympathy for both of them. That must have been hard, she said. He smiled faintly. It was, but she's doing better now. I think she just wants to make sure I'm happy. When Emily went to bed that night in the guest room, she couldn't stop thinking about Margaret's words. He has a complicated heart. It replayed in her mind like an unfinished sentence. What had she meant? Was Daniel hiding something? Or was Margaret simply being protective? Emily told herself to stop worrying. Daniel had never given her a reason to doubt him. He was open, caring, and loyal, so she believed. Still, something about the way Margaret had looked at her made it hard to sleep in the middle of the night. Emily got up for a glass of water. As she passed the hallway, she noticed a slightly open door leading to what looked like an office. Curiosity got the better of her. Inside, she saw shelves filled with books, old photographs, and a desk with scattered papers. One picture caught her attention. Nick was of Daniel, smiling with a woman she didn't recognize. They looked close, maybe more than close. The photo had a small tear in the corner, as if someone had tried to remove it but stopped halfway. Emily stood there for a long moment, unsure what to think. Maybe it was just an old friend. Maybe it meant nothing. But when she turned to leave, she noticed the name written on a small card frame beside the photo Daniel and Laura. Engagement Party 2018. Her stomach tightened. Engagement party. Daniel had never told her he'd been engaged before. The sound of footsteps echoed down the hall. Quickly, Emily stepped away from the desk, pretending to be looking at the books. Daniel appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "Hey," he said sleepily. "Can't sleep?" She forced a smile. "Just getting some water." He nodded, still half asleep. "Come on, you'll feel better in the morning." He took her hand gently and led her back toward the guest room. Emily followed, her mind spinning, her heart pounding, as she lay awake. Staring at the ceiling, one thought refused to leave her. Why didn't he tell me? And deep down, she already knew the weekend that was supposed to bring them closer was about to change everything she thought she knew about Daniel Miller. The next morning, sunlight filled the kitchen as Margaret prepared breakfast, humming softly. Emily joined her, trying to act normal. But her mind was still replaying what she had seen the night before. The photograph of Daniel and the woman named Laura. She didn't know how to bring it up. The air between them was calm, yet under the surface, tension was slowly growing. Daniel came downstairs, cheerful as ever, wrapping his arms around Emily. "Morning. Beautiful," he said. His voice was warm, but Emily could barely look at him. He didn't notice her unease. He was too busy chatting with his mother about errands. "I'll need to head into town to pick up a few things," he said. "You two will be okay here." Margaret smiled. "Of course, dear. Go ahead." Once he left, silence filled the house. Margaret turned to Emily and gestured toward the back door. "Come, let's take a walk in the garden. It's a beautiful morning." The garden was full of color roses, lavender, and sunflowers glowing under the sun. It was peaceful, but Emily's thoughts were anything but. She waited for Margaret to speak first, and soon she did. "You didn't sleep well," Margaret said gently. Not looking at her, Emily hesitated, then admitted, "No, I didn't." Margaret stopped walking and turned to face her. "You saw the picture, didn't you?" Emily froze. "What?" Margaret's eyes softened. "I saw the office door open this morning. You must have been curious. I would have been too." Emily looked down, embarrassed, but unable to deny it. "I didn't mean to snoop. I just saw something I didn't expect." Margaret sighed. "It's all right, dear. You have every right to know. Daniel was engaged once to a woman named Laura. They were together for 3 years. Everyone thought they'd get married." The words hit Emily like a wave, even though she already knew. Hearing them from his mother made them real. "What happened?" she asked quietly. "They ended it suddenly," Margaret said. "Daniel never explained much. He said it was mutual, but I don't think it was. He was heartbroken for a long time." Emily felt her chest tighten. "He never told me," she whispered. Margaret looked at her kindly. "That's what worries me. Daniel is a good man, but sometimes he hides pain instead of facing it. I just want you to be careful, Emily. You seem like a girl who loves deeply. That kind of love deserves truth." Emily nodded slowly. "Thank you for telling me." They walked back to the house quietly. When Daniel returned later that afternoon, he brought flowers and her favorite coffee from town, smiling as if nothing in the world could be wrong. Emily watched him carefully, wondering if that smile had once been meant for someone else. After lunch, they sat outside on the porch. The sky was cloudy and a soft wind rustled through the trees. Emily couldn't hold it in anymore. "Daniel," she said softly, "can I ask you something?" He nodded, sensing her tone. "Of course. Why didn't you tell me you were engaged before?" Daniel's smile faded. His face turned pale as he looked at her. "Did my mom tell you? Does it matter who told me?" She replied quietly. He rubbed the back of his neck, struggling for words. "It was a long time ago, Emily. I didn't want to bring it up because it doesn't mean anything now. But it was important once," she said. "You loved her enough to promise her forever." Daniel's eyes darkened. "I thought I did." But she laughed. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want that pain between us. You're different, Emily. You're real." His voice was sincere, but it didn't erase the feeling that something was missing. Emily nodded, pretending to understand. "I just wish you had told me yourself," she said softly. "I know," he whispered. "I should have." He reached for her hand, and for a moment she let him hold it. But deep down, the seed of doubt had already been planted. That evening, Daniel seemed quieter than usual. They watched a movie with Margaret, but his attention drifted off into his phone. Once it buzzed, and Emily noticed the way he quickly silenced it. Her stomach tightened. When the movie ended, Margaret went upstairs. Emily decided to clear the dishes from the coffee table. That's when she saw Daniel's phone lying on the armrest, its screen lighting up again. One name flashed across it. Laura. Her heart nearly stopped. She didn't touch it, didn't say a word, just stared at the name glowing in the dark for a few seconds before it disappeared. When Daniel came back into the room, she was already standing. "Who's calling you?" she asked, trying to sound calm. He looked confused for a moment, then saw his phone and froze. "Emily, it's not what you think," he said quickly. "Then what is it?" she demanded, her voice shaking but controlled. "She's just reaching out," he said, stepping closer. "She wanted to talk, to apologize. I didn't plan it. I didn't even answer this time." Emily's chest ached. "This time? So she's called before?" Daniel ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "Once or twice. I didn't think it mattered." "It does matter, Daniel," she said softly. "You should have told me." He tried to take her hands, but she stepped back. "Emily, please. You mean everything to me. I don't care about her. I haven't for years." Emily wanted to believe him. She wanted to erase the doubt, but the image of that name on the phone was burned into her mind. "I need some time," she said quietly. Daniel's face fell. "You don't have to do this," he whispered. "I just need to think," she replied. She walked past him, feeling her heart crack with every step. She went upstairs to her room and sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window. The garden below looked peaceful, glowing in the moonlight. But inside, everything felt heavy. Margaret's words echoed in her mind. Sometimes people carry parts of their past quietly an hour later. There was a soft knock on the door. Margaret peeked in. "Are you all right, dear?" she asked gently. Emily nodded weakly. "I'm fine. Just tired." Margaret stepped closer and touched her shoulder. "I know this is painful, but maybe this is something you needed to see." Emily turned to her, tears in her eyes. "I love him. I really do." Margaret nodded. "And maybe he loves you too. But love isn't enough without honesty." When Margaret left, Emily lay down, clutching the blanket, listening to the quiet house around her. Downstairs, she could hear Daniel pacing, his footsteps restless. She didn't know what would happen next. But one thing was clear. The weekend that started as a warm family visit had turned into something else entirely. She had come to meet her boyfriend's mother, and instead she had met the truth. The night stretched on endlessly. Emily couldn't sleep. She replayed every conversation, every small detail that now seemed to have meaning. Daniel's hesitation when talking about his past, the way Margaret's eyes lingered. The soft sadness in her tonal of it fit together like a puzzle she hadn't wanted to solve. By morning, she had made up her mind. She would talk to Daniel again, one last time. She needed answers, not excuses, not half-truths, but real honesty. Because love built on secrets never lasts. As dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight spilled into the room. Emily sat by the window, her heart heavy but clear. Today, she would find out who Daniel really was, and whether the man she loved still had room in his heart for someone else. Morning light slipped through the curtains, soft and golden, but Emily didn't feel its warmth. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her packed bag by the door. The decision hadn't been easy, but after a sleepless night filled with doubts and tears, she knew she couldn't stay silent any longer. She needed answers, the kind that could either heal her heart or break it completely. When she went downstairs, Daniel was already in the kitchen, pouring coffee. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept either. "Morning," he said quietly, his voice uncertain. "Morning," she replied. Her tone steady but distant. He handed her a cup, but she didn't take it. Her hands were clasped together, holding on to her courage. "We need to talk," she said. Daniel nodded, his jaw tightening. "I figured." They sat at the table, facing each other in silence. The ticking clock on the wall sounded louder than usual. Emily spoke first. "I saw her name on your phone. I know you said it meant nothing, but I need the truth, Daniel. Are you still in contact with her?" He sighed, his shoulders sinking. "She called me a few weeks ago. I didn't want to answer, but I did. She said she wanted closure, to apologize for how things ended. I told her I'd moved on, that I was with someone else. That's it." Emily's voice was soft, but her eyes were firm. "Why didn't you tell me?" Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "Because I was scared. I didn't want you to think I still cared about her. I didn't want to ruin what we have." "But hiding it did that anyway," she said. Her words were calm, but they carried pain. "You had a chance to be honest with me, and you chose silence." He looked up, his eyes full of regret. "You're right. I should have told you. I just didn't want to lose you." Emily's heart ached at his honesty, but it wasn't enough to erase the hurt. "Daniel, I don't doubt that you love me," she said. "But love isn't just about feelings. It's about trust. And right now, I don't know if I can trust you." He stood and moved closer, his voice trembling. "Emily, please, don't give up on us. You're the first person I've loved since her. You made me believe in something again." His words made her chest tighten, but she didn't step closer. "And that's the problem, Daniel. You never healed. You just covered the pain with me." For a long moment, neither spoke. The quiet between them was heavy, filled with everything they wanted to say but couldn't. Then Margaret appeared at the doorway, her expression soft but serious. "Maybe you two need a moment alone," she said gently. Emily shook her head. "No, it's okay. I think we've said what needed to be said." Margaret looked at her son, then back at Emily. "I'm sorry you had to go through this, dear. I never wanted to hurt you." Emily smiled sadly. "You didn't. You just showed me what I needed to see." She stood and turned to Daniel. "I care about you deeply, but I can't be with someone who's still looking over his shoulder at the past." Daniel reached out, his voice breaking. "Emily, please. I can fix this." She shook her head gently. "You need to fix yourself first." Margaret walked her to the door as Daniel stood still, his eyes filled with pain he couldn't hide. Emily's bag felt heavy in her hand. But not as heavy as the goodbye she was carrying in her heart. Outside, the sky was overcast, a light drizzle beginning to fall. Margaret placed a comforting hand on her arm. "You're a kind soul, Emily. Don't let this make you doubt that." Emily nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Thank you for being honest with me. It hurt, but I needed it." Margaret gave her a small, sad smile. Sometimes love isn't about holding on. It's about knowing when to let go. Emily took one last look at the house, the porch where she had laughed with Daniel, the window where they had shared late-night talks. It already felt like a memory. She got into her car, her hands trembling slightly as she started the engine. Daniel stepped outside just as she was about to pull away. He didn't call out, didn't beg her to stay. He just stood in the rain, watching her with eyes that said everything words couldn't. For a brief moment, Emily thought about running back to him, about giving him another chance. But deep down she knew this was the moment to walk away. As she drove down the long driveway, tears blurred her vision. Every mile she put between them felt both painful and freeing. She loved him. There was no denying that, but love wasn't supposed to hurt this way. She had gone there to meet his mother, hoping to feel closer to him. Instead, she discovered a truth she couldn't ignore. Hours later, Emily stopped at a small cafe along the highway. The rain had eased and sunlight was breaking through the clouds. She ordered coffee and sat by the window, watching the world move around her. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to breathe. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Daniel. She hesitated, then opened it. "I'm sorry. You didn't deserve this. I hope someday you'll forgive me." Emily read the words twice, then put her phone down. She didn't reply. Some goodbyes didn't need answers. Some stories ended quietly, not with anger, but with understanding. She looked out the window again, her reflection faint against the glass. She wasn't the same woman who had driven to meet her boyfriend's mom. That woman had been in love, full of hope. The one sitting here now was stronger, wiser, and ready to start over. The rain outside stopped completely, leaving the world fresh and calm. Emily smiled faintly, whispering to herself, "Sometimes endings are the beginning of something better." Weeks later, she returned to Seattle and focused on her work. She surrounded herself with friends, filled her apartment with plants and light, and slowly she began to heal. There were moments when she missed Daniel, his laugh, his gentle way of saying her name, but she reminded herself of what she had learned. Love built on half-truths will always crumble. One evening, she received a small letter in the mail. It was from Margaret. Inside was a handwritten note. "Dear Emily, thank you for loving my son when he needed it most. Your kindness reminded him what real love looks like. I hope life gives you the peace and joy you deserve." Margaret. Emily held the letter to her chest, tears filling her eyes again. But this time, they weren't from pain, they were from gratitude. She had walked into that house as someone's girlfriend and walked out as her own person. In the end, Emily didn't regret meeting Daniel or his mother. She didn't regret the heartbreak either. Because sometimes life's hardest goodbyes lead us back to ourselves. And as she looked out at the evening sky turning gold, Emily finally smiled for real, soft, peaceful, and free.